Welcome back to another edition of Between Two Fars. I am joined by Tracy Lee Belford, a phenomenal contract litigation attorney here at NASA. She has been with NASA for almost 30 years, spending most of her time at Kennedy Space Center, but she also spent several years at Dryden Armstrong. And we've been talking about lessons learned post contract dispute resolution. Today, we're going to focus on concepts of mentorship and the importance they play in raising up the next generation of litigation attorneys. Tracy Lee, talk to us a little bit about your recent experience in the Kennedy litigation and how mentorship played a role in that.
So we had a really large construction case that we were litigating, and while I ended up picking up the lead with some personnel changes in the office, I was also assigned as support two attorneys who were new to the office, as well as a paralegal that was new to the office. And none of them really had the background for litigation, certainly not ASBCA litigation, which is such a very specific kind of thing, and it doesn't often look like anything else. And it really was it ended up being my privilege to work with them because they were so interested in learning. And I think what I quickly realized is that by having myself in a lead position, taking the heat of the decision making and the deadlines and the processes, that I could share with them all kinds of things from just, how you manage administratively a case that size, which can be a job of its own, managing deadlines, preparing for depositions, talking to witnesses, and drafting documents that need to be submitted to the board or the judge. Even just I made them do all their own notices of appearance when they joined the case, because I ended up having others join the case. As it got bigger and bigger, we kept adding attorneys. And I discovered that it's so important. And I think that as an agency, we need to continue to do a better job with newer attorneys joining our team of letting them have the experience on cases as much as we can, whether it's personnel, whether it's contract cases, or anything else that is sort of got a lot of moving parts. We need to offer that opportunity, but maybe in a less stressful way. In other words, let them follow along with somebody who has some experience under their belt, and that allows them to learn in a less stressful environment while still taking on some of that responsibility in a controlled way. It's sort of one thing to throw someone in a pool and expect them to learn how to swim, but I don't think we always need to make that experience so stressful. And I think especially now after MAP, and we're sort of all more and more leaning on each other and working together, regardless of where the center sits, that it's easier to, if I have a big case, maybe there's a new attorney at another center that's never done litigation, but they haven't had litigation in many years, which happens. So maybe they need to be working with me on the litigation I have here, so they at least can be exposed to that and not have to wait 10 years or 5 years, or maybe never. Some centers don't have litigation. So I just see an opportunity for people like me to leave the agency better than I found it, which is a goal of mine and always has been, but also to teach younger, newer attorneys joining us that because we work for the United States government, we always get to do the right thing. And I always told all of the people that worked for me, they probably got so tired of hearing it, but we always get to do the right thing. If we owe someone money, we go pay it. We don't try to find a way to not pay it. And so when that itself takes pressure off of how we do our jobs, because we always get to do the right thing. And that's, I think, a very different and new concept for a lot of attorneys because of all of the way television portrays the practice of law and everything else. So I think we have a long way to go. I think we've made some really good strides, but I think it's something that we can continue to improve across the agency as far as mentorship.
What would you say to that mentoring seasoned attorney in charge of a big piece of litigation who has just been told this newer attorney is going to be helping you? There's mixed emotions on that sometimes. What would you say to that mentoring attorney? Do you have any words of advice to that person?
Take a deep breath. Reach for your patient's pants and start with the rules. Start if you're in the ASPCA, for example, they have rules. So, and they're not the same kind of rules as a federal court. So have the new attorneys start from the basics. Let's and engage that new attorney on every step of the process. If you're getting ready to put a Rule 4 file together, for example, if you have an appeal, get that new attorney involved. That's a good way for them to meet the client and start talking to the client and get exposed to the documentation associated with the case. And they can help put it in order. They can help understand how it applies or doesn't apply to the case, maybe where the gaps are. They're going to see things you don't see. So, trust that they have things to bring to the table that are different than some of us old, jaded, tired, people have, and learn from each other. But at the same time, bringing them up in the way that we would like to see cases prosecuted on our side when we have to, with a little bit less stress. So embrace it. It's actually a lot more fun than you would think. And I actually really treasure the relationships that I have built with the attorneys in this office during that process in ways I never, ever could have imagined.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, let's take it from the perspective of the newer attorney who has just been thrown into an ongoing complex case and told, you're going to be supporting this case. What advice or words of encouragement would you give to that attorney?
Some of the advice is the same. If it's a forum that you've never been exposed to, go find the rules for that forum and read the rules. Get a foundation for yourself of what kind of deadlines. Do things operate on 30-day deadlines, 45-day deadlines? Are there briefs that are filed, or is it other kinds of things? Brush up on as much of those kinds of things as you can. Take advantage of all the training tools like the Between Two FARs or other training tools that we have as a group, and try to employ what you've learned in that. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't let yourself go down a rabbit hole because you think you're expected to just know how to do it and get so far down that it isn't done when it needs to be done because you didn't ask a question that could have redirected you to a much easier way to do something. So be sure to ask a lot of questions and talk with your colleagues. Find out if there are other people in the agency who have similar kinds of experience, or even other attorneys who are not as new as you, but they've already kind of maybe been through this mentoring process, and reach out to them and say, how did you get through your first, supporting of a case, and what kinds of things did you learn, or what would be helpful for me in this one that I'm trying to support. And laugh a lot, laugh as much as you can, and recognize everybody has something to bring to the table. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Wonderful. That is some sage advice. I like the advice about laughing as much as you can, because truly it may not feel like it right now, but you can learn to love being a contract attorney, learn to love litigation, learn to love the federal acquisition regulations as much as we do here at Between Two FARs. It may seem overwhelming right now, but hang in there. This is a lifelong adventure and an area of the law where you can continue to learn throughout your career. Tracy Lee, thank you so much for taking your time to share your insight and wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing everybody back here again next time on Between Two FARs.